Do you have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Welcome and welcome back to Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. Glad you joined us for yet another week, another 30 minutes of employment law know-how. That's what we're going to force into your brain, but you'll thank us for it at the end for sure. John Scholes here, your host always, and joining me again this week, Lior Samfiru, employment lawyer from EmploymentLawyer.ca. Right off the hop, I give you that contact information every week, 1-888-861-4555, ask@employmentlawyer.ca. Main topic in just a little bit, all about the old performance improvement plan. We're going to whittle our way through that one. If you don't know what it's about and how to cope with it, we'll deal that later on in the show. As well, radio shows. We do lots of those across the country. I tell you this every week. You can phone in for those hour-long shows and maybe get your voice on air, and it may appear on this show a little later on, including right here in the GTA, News Talk 1010, Sundays at 1 p.m. Leo and I love doing that show, so please stop by on a Sunday, contribute, and maybe you'll appear on this show. That and lots more coming up. We'll get the emails and other questions as well. But Leo, we always start the show, as you know, with the week that was, a case of the day. Pal, what do you got going on your side?
Hey, Johnny, great to be here. I have it on good authority that the moment you put us on TV, ratings skyrocket for good news for everyone involved. But this is a serious show because we talk about a serious and a very important topic, which is employment law. We talk about your rights. We talk about the things that you need to know if you're working, if you lost your job, if things don't go smoothly in the workplace, what to do, what to say, what the law says you should do, and of course, whether what your employer is doing is legal or not. So on this show, we cover all these things. If you've ever wondered about something, wondering ends right now. We'll tell you what you need to know. If you've always been curious about something, or maybe you're just suspecting that your employer is doing something wrong, well, right now we'll talk about so many topics. We're bound to cover the thing that you want to know. And of course, if we don't answer your question, easy to get answers. Reach me in the office. You can phone or email. We'll give you that contact information throughout the show, so stay tuned for that. But to start us off, as always, case of the day, a situation that came across my desk very, very recently. I spoke with a lady who found herself in a situation that's not uncommon. She got an ultimatum. Now, in her situation, she was called into a meeting and she was told, we really lost some confidence in you. We don't really trust you anymore. So we're going to give you these two options. You can make it easy for yourself and just resign. Or if you want to, we'll just let you go, we'll fire you, and we'll pay you 18 weeks, 18-week severance. She was, of course, distraught. She was upset, very emotional for obvious reasons, and she called me. And she wanted to know what are her rights and can they do this to her? So let's start with the idea, of course, that a resignation cannot be forced on you. You can't be told that you should be resigning. By definition, a resignation is something that you do yourself voluntarily. So there's no such thing as you better resign or else. If the company wants to let her go, they can. They're allowed to let her go, but they have to pay her severance. And unless she did something terrible, unless she stole, she committed fraud, she hit somebody, unless she did that, they have to pay her severance if they decide to let her go. I don't know what this loss of confidence stuff is, but it doesn't allow them to let her go without severance. She's owed a lot more than that. In fact, she's owed 12 months, not 18 weeks that they said they'll pay her. She's owed 12 months. So what I told her is to say, none of the above. I'm going to continue working. If you want me gone, you do what you have to do. But I'm not agreeing to leave, and I'm not going to tell you that 18 weeks is fine. If they let her go, I'm going to get her 12 months severance. But that situation is not that uncommon. Oftentimes, if you're getting an ultimatum, there may be a third option, which is none of the above. If you're given an ultimatum, if your employer says you better do X or Y will happen, call me. You have rights. There's things that you can do and protections that you have, so keep that in mind.
It's interesting, though, Leo, the average, viewer, even listener, if this is on a radio show, we've covered a similar topic before, they're thinking, well, actually, that employer beyond the 18-week severance, which is really weak. We know that already. We knew that off the top. Somebody would think, well, that's actually not a bad employer. Rather than having them fired, they're giving the option to resign. It looks better on their permanent record. It doesn't show up to a prospective employer later on. But that's not the right way to think about it, is it?
There is no permanent record. There is no database, spreadsheet, vault where these things are kept. There's nothing your employer, future employer will know. Unless you did something terrible, there's nothing you need to worry about, okay? It's not better to resign than to be let go. Most people, when they're out of a job, it's because they were let go, because the company made a decision to part ways, and that's okay. But no, if they lost confidence, your new employer is not going to know about that. And not only that, we can actually negotiate a letter of reference for you beyond just the severance. So no, let's put that issue to bed. It's not better to resign than to be let go.
As we mentioned off the top of the show, radio shows across the country pretty much, right here in the GTA, Sundays at 1. Just want to remind you, News Talk 1010 Sundays at 1 p.m. is where you'll catch a show, a chance for you for an hour to call into the show and ask your questions. You'll maybe appear on this show as well. Lior, I want to get to the first phone call of this show tonight, right now.
He actually is currently on maternity parental leave, and I'm due to come back into resume my full-time job, which I've been there for 16 years now. However, I was just called in from my employer about a week ago saying that they want to have a meeting with me to discuss the expansion of the department. However, when I got there for the meeting, I was presented with a termination letter without cause. So as far as I understand, the person who had hired on before I left the leave, which I've trained also, was hired on as a 6-month contract, but now she is still there and doing my role.
Ooh.
Yeah, John, I mean, I think this deserves a shake of the head here because what an employer doing things wrong. That's such an example of that. Illegal. Can't do this. Any of this stuff that we just heard is not legal. You can't do that. An employer is under a legal obligation to bring an employee back from maternity leave, period. Unless by some act of God, there's no job anymore, it's not possible to bring them back, they have to bring them back. They can't decide that they like the replacement better. They can't decide to give the job to someone else. They have to bring the employee back from parental leave. If they don't, that could be an employment standards violation, a human rights violation, wrongful dismissal, you name it. So can't do that. If that job still exists, she must get it. That's it. Now, beyond that, of course, beyond this human rights violation, there's the issue of severance, of course. She is owed severance after 16 years, significant amount of time. So let's see how much severance she's owed. We're going to go and use our severance calculator tool. You can find that at pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. I'm going to put that information into that severance calculator, and let's see what we get here. 16 years of service. She is 47 years of age. And of course, we don't know what her employer is offering her, but we do know she's owed right around 18 months of severance. 18 months. That's what's at stake for her. Again, you can do that yourself for your own entitlements at pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. But it's illegal to let someone go when they're coming back from parental leave.
And with that, we'll take our first and short break of the show. Lior, so stand by for that. When we come back on the other side, we'll get into the performance improvement plan. You ever been on one? Ever been threatened with one? It's okay. We'll drill down on that topic in just a bit as we continue here with Ask a Lawyer on CP24.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
And welcome back to Ask a Lawyer. Thank you so much for hanging in. John Scholes here. Lior Samfiru as well, back for this show from EmploymentLawyer.ca. And you want to reach out anytime. I always tell you to have that conversation on your own time. 1-888-861-4555. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca. And as Lior mentioned, PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. That's a website you can use anytime. Okay, let's get into this, pal. Performance improvement plan. A lot of people are not familiar with what this is. Maybe they've been on it. Maybe they didn't like it. And we're going to tell you how to deal with it. First question, probably the obvious one, Lior. What is it, and how do you respond if you're put on one?
Yeah, so there's a lot to discuss here, actually. In its simplest form, a performance improvement plan is a document that outlines a plan to help improve performance, to help improve goals, and to help the employee achieve the goals and targets that they have in the workplace. It's a document that's designed to help you. Okay, and we called it a PIP often. So it's not seen as a disciplinary thing. It's really there to tell you, here's what you need to do to meet the goals that we have set for you. Now, the unfortunate thing is oftentimes what I see is employers using the performance improvement plan as a way to try to build the case to terminate employment for cause. Now, here's the key with a performance improvement plan. If you don't agree with it, if you don't think it's fair, if you think there's things there that don't make any sense, you have to say so. And you have to say so in writing. I want you to send an email to the boss, to the manager, to the owner, whoever the right person is, saying, here's why I don't agree with this performance improvement plan. Either maybe the targets don't make sense, or maybe I did meet the targets, or that I'm not really getting any help. Tell them your perspective. By doing that, you're going to make it that much harder for the company to use the performance improvement plan to build a case against you. You're going to help yourself preserve your job and preserve your severance if at some point you are let go. So being silent is no good. Now, if you agree with it, if it's 100% good and accurate, fine. Do your best and let's move on. But if it's not all there, if it's not something you agree with completely, you have to say so in writing to preserve your legal rights.
I think by any measure, though, if you're on that performance improvement plan, it's going to feel like you're being highlighted. You're under the microscope. So can you go off on a stress medical leave if you're on a performance improvement plan, if it gets that far for you personally?
At the end of the day, when it comes to a stress leave, it should not be a strategy. Going on a stress leave and a medical leave is not a strategy to try to help this workplace situation. Now, if you're legitimately suffering with mental health issues, et cetera, and you speak to your doctor and your doctor says, no, you've got to be off work for a while, then absolutely, you can go off on a stress leave. You get that doctor's note, and with that doctor's note, you can be off as long as possible. And certainly, if your employer is acting unreasonably, if they're bullying you, if they're trying to push you out and it's impacting your health, then yes, going on a stress leave with your doctor's support may make sense. What I don't think makes sense is a situation where you say, well, they're going to let me go, so I'm just going to go off on a leave and stop them from doing that. That's not going to work. It's not going to stop them from doing that. It's just not going to be effective. So with your doctor's support, absolutely, but start there.
So what happens, Lior? You're on this performance improvement plan. You go through it, and at the end of the day, for all intents and purposes, you fail. You don't rise to the expectations they expected. Can you be fired for cause in that situation?
So here's a scenario. Company puts you on a performance improvement plan. They tell you, here's the goals that you have to meet over the next few months, and you do your best. You try, but you don't meet those goals. Well, the fact that you didn't meet them does not allow the company necessarily to let you go for cause. It is very difficult to fire someone for cause because they didn't meet the performance improvement plan targets. No, it does not mean that at all. Now, if the company still wants to let you go, that would be a without cause termination, meaning they would have to pay you severance. They cannot avoid paying you that severance. Now, for the company to let you go for cause because of performance issues, they would almost have to show that you're deliberately doing a bad job, that you've set out to hurt the company. That's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible to do. So you could be owed your full severance up to 2 years of pay, up to 24 months, even if you don't meet the targets in the performance improvement plan. Now, always do your best, always try your hardest. But just because you didn't meet targets does not mean you can be fired for cause.
Again, Lior and I do a lot of radio shows across the country, including here in the GTA News Talk 1010, Sundays at 1 p.m. We get our phone calls from our radio shows, and we pull them over here, and we talk about them. Let's get to phone call number 2 right now, Lior.
I'm actually calling for a friend. She worked for this company for a little over a year. They're downsizing. They no longer need her services. Mm-hmm. And because she was an independent contractor, she's not entitled to any severance. What's your take on that?
The old independent contractor, eh?
Yeah, and there's an assumption built there. Well, she's an independent contractor. Well, why are you assuming that? No. In the fact that the vast majority of cases, people that have been classified or called independent contractors are in fact misclassified. The law would consider them to be employees. If you work for a company and you have a regular job, you do the work and you come home and the next day you go back and do it again, you've probably been misclassified and you are an employee. Doesn't matter what you signed. Doesn't matter what you thought you were, what the company that you work for thinks that you are. Doesn't matter. If you look like an employee, you are an employee. Now, why is that important? It's important because you're going to be owed severance if you lose that job, because employees get severance. Now, this person, even after a year or so, she still could be owed months and months of severance, okay? So not only does she get severance, it's going to be measured in months. We mentioned PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. We have a tool there that allows you to find out if you're an employee or an independent contractor. Of course, it's all free. Of course, it's all anonymous. So check it out. But chances are, if you're being called a contractor, you've probably been misclassified.
We'd like to get to a third phone call, Lior, but we got to do that after the break. In fact, this one's going to be another phone call about a termination. You are going to love the reason why this person was let go. It's a beauty. That's coming up after the break, right here on Ask a Lawyer on CP24.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
All right, welcome back. This is Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. John Scholes here and Lior Samfiru as well, employment lawyer from EmploymentLawyer.ca. The reach out anytime, 1-888-861-4555. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Okay, Lior, you're going to love this. Our third phone call from the show. Again, our radio shows across the country. And to put more of a finer point on it, right here, News Talk 1010 in the GTA Sundays at 1 p.m. Phone call number 3. Listen up. Here it comes.
I have a girlfriend of mine that works as a sales supervisor. A new district manager was appointed to their area. Now, after this manager came on board, they gave my girlfriend a notice of termination effective immediately. The reason they gave, believe it or not, she was sitting on a counter swinging her feet. And that's not grounds for dismissal. They only gave her 1 week's pay after she had been there for almost a year.
Well, even after practicing law for over 20 years, I guess you get new things, you hear new things. The old swinging your feet grounds for termination. Obviously, that's ridiculous, but maybe not as ridiculous as you think, because it's not that it's not grounds for termination. An employer can terminate for most reasons. It's simply not grounds for a termination for cause. So her employer can let her go on a without cause basis and pay her full severance. Maybe it's not a nice thing to do. Maybe it's a dumb reason to do it that way. But legally, as long as they pay proper severance, they can do that. So the question really becomes not that they have a good reason. The question is, how much severance is she owed? Now, this is a classic situation where even less than a year that she's worked, her severance is still going to be substantial and a heck of a lot more than the 1 week they said they're going to pay her. We're going to go back to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. We're going to use our severance calculator tool because we want to know the real amount that she's owed. So she's 47 years of age, worked for under a year as a sales supervisor. Company says 1 week, that's all you get. Not at all. You see right on the bottom, she's owed 4 to 6 months of severance, not weeks, 4 to 6 months. That's how short service employees are treated when it comes to severance. It's a generous severance because that's what the law provides. So remember, for you as well at home, if you've worked for a year, for 6 months, for a few months, you can absolutely be owed severance. It's measured in months. So check out PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca.
And you can join Lior and other lawyers in his firm, no problem, doing their live chat, their live stream on Facebook and YouTube. You want to take part of that, stlawyers.ca, at stlawyers.ca is how you do that. Here is the question for this week, Lior. After being off work for nearly a year due to extreme stress, I've no choice but to return after my long-term disability claim was denied. Despite doctor support, a coworker just told me they overheard a management meeting where my termination was discussed. What should I do about this?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the disability claim being denied. If the disability claim is denied, that doesn't mean that that can't be changed. An insurance company may often deny your claim or cut you off before you're ready to go back to work, before your doctor says you should be going. So if your disability claim is denied or you're off disability because the insurance company is not buying it, call me. We have a whole team dealing just with this. They shouldn't be going against your doctor, and they should allow you to stay on disability. Now, vis-a-vis the employer, if you do end up going back to work, let's deal with that then. Your employer cannot let you go because you were sick. They have to make all efforts to bring you back to the same position. Only if they've tried and they've looked and there's nothing available can they let you go. So let's kind of cross that bridge when we get to it. But I would start with dealing with the insurance company that should not be cutting you off if your doctor says you're unable to work.
All right, good stuff. We got time for at least another email coming up here, Lior, but we'll take a break first, so you to stick around as well. We will get to that right here on Ask a Lawyer on CP24.
Do you have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Okay, welcome back. Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. Quickly, I'll give you the reach out information for Lior. You want to reach out after the show, 1-888-861-4555 and ask@employmentlawyer.ca. That email address is exactly where we're going now. Lior, listen up. I just found out that our office is closing in 1 month. I won't get any severance, even though I've been there for 8 years. The company will still have 2 offices elsewhere in the province. Shouldn't I get something?
Something, absolutely. And remember, a company cannot restructure themselves in a way so as to avoid paying their legal obligations. They can't say, well, we're going to close down this office and let the employees go, and because this office is closed, now severance doesn't get paid. It doesn't work that way. If the company is still in operation, if the company itself still has assets, company still has things that it owns, guess what? They have to pay severance, and that severance can be as much as 24 months. So trying to be clever and restructure never works. The law is smarter than that. So this person is going to be owed their severance. And after 8 years, that could be 12 months severance. And important to remember that. Now, if the company is formally in bankruptcy, formal bankruptcy that they filed, and that's the process, that may be very bad news for the employees. But short of formal bankruptcy, that employee has to get paid their full severance.
All right, Lior, good stuff, but we are out of time for this week, so we'll leave it there. Pick it up in a week or two, or at least next week for sure, guaranteed. You want to reach out now that we're done again one more time to Lior, you can do so, 1-888-861-4555, ask@employmentlawyer.ca. Remember that website, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca, and the radio shows come. Please join us every week, News Talk 1010, Sundays at 1 p.m., and this show always Ask a Lawyer on CP24, Wednesday nights at 9:30. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.